Be bold. Be brave. Be extraordinary. Be vulnerable. Be real. Be curious. Be true. Be you. Welcome to Trusting Your Gut with world-class energy intuitive Catherine McIntosh, a show designed to awaken you to enjoy the process of evolving, have fun along the way, and learn to listen to those silent in-between moments. You are the expert of your own life, and nobody knows more about the next steps to take in your journey than you. So please, listen to your gut and discover what's waiting for you to explore. Here is your host, Catherine McIntosh.
All right, my magical friends. So, welcome to the show today. And wow. So, I got to say, the last 4 or 5 days, I've been feeling pretty darn vulnerable. So, I've had a spectacular few months and kind of riding this wave of just excitement and energy and lots of really cool things happening in my life. And then the last few days, 5 days, I started to get this like weird feeling, this uncomfortable feeling, almost like a wave of grief and sadness. And, I've been doing some on purpose, some movements with my body to open up some of the unexpressed or suppressed trauma in my body. And as a result, I've shed a lot of tears. And as I'm shedding these tears, I'm like, personally, I've been expecting them just to disappear. Okay, goodbye. I'm good. Life is good. No more crying. And there's just been this like wave of a different energy in my world that I'm not used to as of late. And it feels uncomfortable. And so today's topic, actually, it's funny, I picked these topics in advance and I'm like, of course, this is the topic for today. So today's topic is today could be the day that changes your life. And I think we've all had experiences where we can look back on our life choices and our journey through this crazy experience of being in a physical body in this time on this planet. And we look back and we go, wow, that was a day that changed my life. For some of you might be, meeting your spouse or getting married, or maybe the day you got a divorce, or maybe the day you realized it was time to get a divorce. So, this topic can apply to both sides of the journey of life. It can apply where those moments maybe you ignore your awareness and you make a choice that changes the course of your life, maybe not in the way that you were hoping. But there's also these moments, and this is kind of the direction I'd like to take today's call and topic today is, you know, I see so many times, I do this for a living. I talk to people for a living. I work with energy for a living. And I'm fortunate enough to have like what feels like to me the coolest life, right? And yet there's still so much more that I want to create, that I want to accomplish, that I want to do. And what I've really been honing in on lately on my group coaching calls with my private clients and with the people that I work with on an ongoing basis, including just being a friend to my friends, is this idea that when we're not in the greatest of spaces, and look, I've been challenged with this, which is why I'm really grateful we're having this topic and this conversation today, because normally I'd come on and be like, let's talk about it from a place. And this is what I know about me and this journey that I've chosen to be on, or that this has chosen me to be on, because it feels like a match. And, when I pick a topic that I'm about to talk about, or a topic for a class that I'm going to facilitate or offer as an online course, the course or the class or the topic in a radio show, it also works on me. And so, any area of my life where I might need more information or I'm not living in total alignment with the topic starts to work on me. So, no surprise, the last 5 days, I've had a ton of tears. I've had what feels like this grief or sadness. And I've had this just like, wow, like, what is this? Right. And, I was skiing this morning, took the benefits of living in Aspen. I got to go on the mountain. I went by myself intentionally, supposed to meet with friends. I said, you guys, I think I gotta go have a Catherine moment because I know when I am in these tender moments, I don't want to bypass it. I actually want to use it as fuel, as a door opener to a possibility that I might not be able to see. And so many times when we are in a challenging space in our lives and in this journey called life, we tend to want to just get rid of the emotion, get rid of the feeling, get rid of how we are. And or the opposite side of it is we're like, "Oh my god, I suck. I'm wrong. I can't get anything right. Why does this always happen to me?" Right? We go into sort of a deep, dark black hole that is hard to get out of. And this topic to me means a lot because I think that there is a different sort of window open to all of us when something occurs that isn't pleasant or is a challenging experience. So I noticed today on the chairlift that I had this conversation with myself and I was like, all right, what if you just surrender into it? Instead of trying to change it, instead of trying to get rid of it, instead of trying to like hope that it'll be gone, what if you just like get curious about it? And I'm speaking like a lot of what I'm talking about right now is coming out for the first time. And so as I sat with myself today, and I'm realizing this right now, literally, I recognize that sometimes I'm not the best at sitting with those who I care about the most when they are not in the best of spaces. And so, guess what? That also applies to me. And so, this topic is working on me because it's inviting me to sit with myself when maybe I'm not in the best of places. And a year and a half ago, I hit what felt like midlife rock bottom. I won't even call it midlife. I'll just call it life rock bottom, with my body, with my energy levels, with just how I was feeling about myself. I kind of hit rock bottom, and I hadn't really experienced that level. I wouldn't say I'm at rock bottom, but what I'm noticing is that I am not always the best at being with myself when I'm not doing great. And I also notice that I'm not always the best at showing up for others when they're not doing great in the space of not trying to fix it, right? Not trying to fix it. And I think that a lot of us are wired that if we see pain, if we personally experience pain, if we have tears, if there's sadness, if there's grief, if there's frustration or anger, we tend to be pretty hard on ourselves and judgmental of ourselves in those moments instead of just sitting with it. And, you know, the most challenging thing that I've faced as a coach, as a consultant, as an intuitive is especially when it comes to my friends, my son, and anyone that I'm connected to that I really care about. I notice that there's this sort of thing where I want to fix, want to make it better. And I gotta say that that's not always the greatest choice. And these last 5 days are teaching me that, and I didn't realize it until coming on here live with you. And so I'm always grateful to share my journey, to talk about topics. And this topic of today could be the day that changes your life is what if we were able to make room for the idea that something in your universe could shift drastically if you allow it, right? Something in your life could shift drastically if you allow it. And I don't think that we give ourselves enough permission or enough credit when it comes to our ability to not only be resilient, but our ability to affect change in our own universe. And here's the deal: when we are suffering and struggling and in a feeling of lack or not enough or judgment, or maybe we're grieving the loss of a loved one. Maybe we've had a hard few days. I've had more challenges come up in the last 5 days that I was not expecting, and it hit me, and it hit me hard. And I wasn't expecting some of the experiences that showed up in my universe. And but guess what? Guess what? What if every challenge that has ever been in your universe, what if every challenge that has ever been in your universe was designed to make you better, to elevate you into greatness? Yeah, and to change your life, right? And so it's those moments where we're like, whoa, this is so hard. Whoa, I don't know if I can do it anymore. Whoa, right? Like I was talking to my yoga teacher. He was delivering a class the other day, and he was sharing a moment where he thought it was it for him, right? He thought it was it for him. And he was like, this is it. And so he said the only thing he knew how to do was sit by the river and do Om. And in that process of oming, right, that moment where he chose to sit by the river, he was kind of in squat position. I don't know what it's called in yoga posture language, but he sat there, he omed into basically a massive shift. And then he came back to life, right? He got his energy back. He's got his vitality back. And when you go, and each of us have had the experience of going to these depths in our life where we're like, wow, I don't know if I can make it. I don't know if I'm going to survive this one. This one might blow me over, right? And it's those really small moments, not of let me get over this, right? That's not what gets you over it. That's not what creates the day that changes your life. What creates the day that changes your life is if you surrender, right? If you allow, if you hang out in the mud with yourself. Simon Sinek talks about this. If you hang out in the mud with yourself, right? Really cool. I had the opportunity to pass him by on the street in Aspen. I was like, "Are you Simon?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, I just said, "Thank you so much for your content. It really, it changed and is changing and continues to change my life. And I appreciate his content so much." And so when you're willing to sit in the mud with someone, which means you don't fix it, you don't change it, you don't try and make them feel better. Yeah, just listen. And yet, how often do we not do that for ourselves? How often, if we're in the mud, we either like go down the rabbit hole of our life is ruined. So that's not just listening and hanging out and being space, right? Or we're like, okay, let's fix it, which also is not hanging out and being space. And so this really sweet, beautiful, we'll call it the sweet spot of surrendering into the energy is one of the greatest, not only teaching moments for your own self evolution, but it's also, right, a moment that could change your life. And if you start paying attention to all these little moments that could change your life, right? Had dinner, it happens to me at least on a weekly basis where I'm like, that was a life changing moment. That was a life changing conversation. That was a life changing chance encounter. I had one yesterday. And oftentimes, what we do is we dismiss those as if they're not happening. And we go back into whether it's, and I'm talking about when you're in a challenging moment, whether it's woe is me or see, I can't get anything right. So I'm a sucker when I am in these energetic shifts in my life. I am a sucker for the Hallmark Channel. And I will watch the Hallmark Channel and I will let myself cry. It's something that's always brought me comfort because in those moments where I'm not doing okay, I gotta let it go. And in this last few days, I've also had so many magical moments, like, you know, but I can feel this discomfort of a change and a shift happening. And so, am I gonna force the change? Am I gonna try and bypass the change? Am I gonna try and get over the change? Or am I gonna choose the one that for me and like my throat closes and I get a little verklempt and I want to shed a tear, am I going to choose the one that honestly is probably the best choice for me, which is to surrender into it, to get curious about it, to just hold space? Because sometimes it's the part of us or the pieces of us or the spirit of us or the soul of us that is crying out to be held, to energetically be heard. And here's the thing is most of the time when you're in it, not a lot of words, and we want to attach it, "Oh, it must be because of this conflict I had with this person," or, "It must be because, this deal didn't go through," or, "It must be because I got in a fight with my spouse." No, those things that appear are the universe's way of contributing to you to an awakening. And so I want to invite you, wherever you are in your life, that if you are in a challenging moment, that you give yourself permission to sit with it. So as I was sitting with it, I was watching the Hallmark Channel, right? Because I know that it helps bring these emotions out. And there was a part of, oh man, gosh darn, my Catherine's brain. When I feel like this, sometimes it's harder to string together coherent sentences. Um, so, oh man, it did have a point. I promise. It was really cute. Oh, that's what it was. Thank you. So it was this woman, and she, of course, it's always about a love story, right? Cheesy, romantic, Hallmark love story. And there was this woman, and she had believed that in grade school, one of her classmates had cursed her to basically have terrible luck in love. And what that meant was that the people that she loved the most, something bad would always happen to them. And so she went on for 20 years to believe that she was cursed and that this curse was real. And she kept telling this story and convincing herself like things bad always happen to her or things bad always happen to the people she loves. And it was a pretty interesting sort of takeaway for me. I always like metaphors. And it was this idea that if we believe that we are doomed or that something is wrong with us or that we're not good enough or, mine was I'm obnoxious. And so I remember a teacher once said to me, well, if you believe you're obnoxious, you will go looking for all the ways in which you feel obnoxious. And I was like, wow, that's totally true. Totally true. And so I have been recognizing lately, right? There is a change happening in my world, asking for more, desiring more, wanting to have a much bigger life. And in the process, guess what? Some old patterns and some old habits need to go away. And so these tears, this grief, this sadness, this like I can't even like explain it. All I can tell you is like my throat kind of closes up and my belly like feels like it got punched in the gut a little bit. And until I was willing to surrender into it, I noticed that I was all of a sudden eating when I wasn't hungry, right? I was like using food to kind of medicate a little bit, not binge eating by any means, but just like sort of absentee. Oh, there's pretzels. Let me have some pretzels. Oh, here's some nuts. Let me have some nuts. Oh, let me have some hummus. Like I was just chomping on things. And I was like, wait, I'm not even hungry. And it wasn't until I went, oh, what if I just hang out in the mud with myself in this energy? Because guess what? I'm asking for a bigger life. I'm asking for more. I'm aware of some old patterns and habits and some thoughts that are in the way of where I want to go. And so, guess what? Crap that is blocking me from having that next sort of evolution of life needs to go. And you know what? Not always pretty. And so most people do have the hardest time with this energy, and then they'll give up right before the magic happens. They'll give up right before the success happens. They'll give up right before the relationship they've always asked for is about to appear. And so I want to invite you, if you're in a place in your life where you are actually struggling, where you are being faced with a challenge, that I want to invite you to see what it would be like if you surrendered into being a kindness and an allowance and a space for you, that it's okay to not be okay. You don't need to fix it. You don't need to change it, right? There's a beautiful poem, one of my favorites by Araya Mountain Dreamer. And I forget what it's called, but she says, oh man, I want to know if you be willing to sit in your fears or mine without needing to fade it, fix it, or something. I mean, it's a beautiful poem. I think I forget what it's called. I'll have to find that book. It's somewhere in my house. But I want to invite all of you, like, what if you didn't need fixing? What if there was no problem to solve? There was nothing to fix, and there was nothing wrong with you. You know, wise old man said that to me several years ago. And when he did, it changed my life. I worked with him for a short amount of time. Brilliant, beautiful man. And he really shed some words of wisdom into my world that opened me, because I tend to be a fixer. I think a lot of coaches, a lot of consultants, a lot of healers, right? We get into this profession because we want to help. But guess what? Sometimes we're terrible at taking our own advice, or we're terrible at surrendering when maybe life is offering, not from a wrongness perspective, but from a door opening to a new reality, to a new possibility, to a new awakening. Like the challenges you face are attempting to open up your world. Yeah, and so every week, although we haven't had a live caller in a while, we take live callers. And if you are in a place where you would like some support in some form of a challenge that you have, you are welcome to call in and ask us any question you have. Ask me any question you have, and I'll do my best to offer just a perspective, right? A possibility that maybe you hadn't seen before. And so, my friends, this concept of today could be the day that changes your life. When you know that you wake up and every day is a day that could change your life, and hopefully we're talking about changing your life for the better. Although when, crap hits the fan, I'll say it that way. When crap hits the fan, right? When we're in those hard moments, those actually could be some game-changing moments that could change the course of your life. And I had this experience recently where I was faced with a new challenge that I hadn't had in a while. And I remember waking up going, well, I feel it. I'm okay with it. I'm going to sit in the mud with it. I'm going to surrender into it. I'm going to allow it. And as I did, I went, holy cow, today could be a day that changes my life. And all of a sudden it was like, right? Like a mind blowing, like the lights turned on in my world. And I had this felt physical experience in my body that something like dynamic was about to change. And for all of you out there, no matter how many years or how many decades or how many months you've struggled with a particular topic or a particular area in your life, today could be the day that you allow that to change. Excuse me, but here's what's required. Here's what's required. You got to stop judging you. So in this cheesy Hallmark movie, right? Tears streaming down my face, kind of laughing because I was like, oh my God, this is comical. This is a total metaphor for what we do. We create a story in our heads that something's wrong. And then we look to the universe and in our environment for proof that the story we have about ourselves is true. And so, for those of you that have a story that you're not enough, you will attract experiences that validate and prove that you're right, you're not enough. Right? If you believe you are wealthy and successful, then you will attract experiences that give you the feeling of wealth and success. Right? If you believe you're, a bright, shiny being, then you will attract energies that validate, right, your bright, shiny being. If you believe that you're cursed or you're waiting for the other shoe to drop or you always have bad luck in certain areas of your life, well, guess what? You will attract circumstances and experiences that prove that you're right. And so, if you're listening, it is up to each of you to begin to discover, if what is showing up in my life, and believe me, I'm saying this out loud, and I think this show might also be for me today, right? I'm saying this out loud is when you like look at your life and you look at the things that perhaps you're like, I'd really like that to change. You also want to look at your actions and and your belief systems, what beliefs do you have that keeps recreating this experience that you say you don't want to have? All right. So I had someone the other day I was talking to, and their mother is not doing well. And they are a healer and they've been working on and with their mother. And so I asked her, I said, I have a weird question for you. Does your mother actually want to be healed? Does she want to get better? And she's like, well, she says she does. And I said, well, saying that you do and actually believing that you do and taking action to make yourself better are two totally different things. And I said, here's my hit. My hit is that your mother, right, is is in a place in her life where she's sick. She's been used to being sick. And as long as she's sick, and I might get a lot of flack for this, but this is just my opinion and point of view. And I was reading the energy of this, you know, as long as she's sick, she gets attention. You pay attention to her. All of her friends pay attention to her. Doctors pay attention to her. She gets what she actually wants, which is attention. And she doesn't feel like she can get attention if she's doing good. Now, those of you that are parents, you might know what I'm talking about. When your kid is doing good and not making a fuss and not throwing a temper tantrum or not getting mad at you or whatever it is, right? You tend to leave them alone and not pay as much attention to them. However, when the moments that we start paying attention to our kids more is when they're not doing great. So guess what? It teaches our kids to act out more. Why? Because then they get mom and dad's attention. And so the people in our lives are the same way. I have another person in my life, and their husband is always grumpy. Like, always grumpy, and I've watched this beautiful woman try to make her husband happy. Never wants to be happy, and she goes, "Oh, I just wish he could be happy," and I said, "Does he actually wanna be happy, or is grumpy a way that he gets your attention?" She's like, "Oh my gosh, he doesn't actually wanna change." And so, for all of you out there, this is your invitation to look at, right? What do you want to change in your life? And do your beliefs match your ability to change that thing? Or do your beliefs support that thing continuing as a pattern that you'll then continue to say you want to change it, but you're not actually creating an energy or creating a vibration to be able to do something about it to make that change. It's pretty fascinating stuff. Pretty fascinating, at least I'm fascinated by it. So, yeah, there's so much more I could say, but why don't we take a brain break for a second? And by the way, those of you that listen to my show weekly, thank you for being here. You know, when I facilitate classes, everyone's always like, I don't know what it is you do, but you like speak to the energy of the body. You speak to the energy and the vibration, and something in my life always changes when I show up in your classes. And, you know, I feel lucky and fortunate to be able to do what I do. And I do believe that if you're listening to a show, you're opening yourself up to receiving an energetic transmission that could be something that changes your life. And I'll say this before we take the break. There's a book out there that I love. If you're an entrepreneur, I think it's a must read. It's Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I'm not the best reader, but I listen to a lot of audiobooks on tape when I'm skiing, when I'm hiking, when I'm cooking, when I'm cleaning, when I'm doing life. I almost, even when I'm working on the computer, I listen to a lot of audiobooks. And inside Think and Grow Rich isn't the answer to make you rich. It's not the step by step business plan to make you rich. It's not the do this and then this and then this to make you rich. It's an energetic transmission of information. And inside that information, it's designed to open you up to your big idea, to your truth, to your ability to tap into the abundance and wealth that's inside of you. And so this is your invitation today to tap into the wisdom and the wealth and the abundance that's inside of you when it comes to your your relationships, your health, your wealth, your joy, your freedom, right? And some of you might need to do a little bit of a rediscovering because it's 2024. You might need to maybe take some time with a pen and paper, maybe out in nature, get a journal, and start really asking yourself, what is it that you actually desire right now, today? Not like, oh, well, my old desires were, because you might have some new desires. And every day, every molecule in the universe is shifting. And so, why not be a part of that possibility to shift your consciousness, to shift your physical vibration, to shift your energetic vibration, to shift your financial vibration, and to shift your relationship vibration and any other vibration you want? Because if you allow it, right? Just showing up and being authentic with all of you and sharing I'm in a vulnerable place, way better than trying to do a show and going, "Hi, let me talk about a topic while I disconnect from myself," because that ain't, I know for my life personally, that's not going to get me anywhere. So I'm so grateful you're here listening. If you would like to call in live, have a question, happy to support you. Otherwise, we'll just continue the conversation when we get back from the break.
Om Times TV.
Do you trust you? Do you trust your body? What if the key to unlocking the weight, pain, suffering, fear, anxiety, addictions, traumas, and sorrows was already inside of you? Learn to love the skin you are in so you can create the body, business, and life you love. Everyone always says you can't explain what Catherine does, you just have to experience it. From Hollywood actors to New York Times best-selling authors to some of the world's wealthiest and most successful, no two experiences are the same. For private sessions, online courses, live events, and the latest book Jack Canfield calls Game Changer and should be required reading for everyone, go to katherinemcintosh.com. KatherineMcintosh.com.
Imagine becoming a super influencer. Reinvent yourself, invest in your brand, and then manifest your success with a robust spheric approach. Om Times Media and Broadcasting offers a unique and multifaceted way to become the spiritual and conscious influencer you deserve to be by putting your message across our powerful platform with its proven record of integrity and excellence. Through our produced shows, Om Times offers the opportunity to become a social media TV personality, a radio show host, an Om Times magazine columnist, and a syndicated podcaster, all in one shot. By live streaming your show on Om Times TV and broadcasting it across the extensive Om Times radio and TV networks, you become more than a host. You become an ambassador and a force for positive change. Om Times. Open yourself to the possibilities.
I want to eat apples and bananas. I need to eat apples and bananas. Why can't I eat apples and bananas?
Support the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks to help provide meals to those in need. Join us at feedingamerica.org.
Okay, so we are back. The topic today could be the day that changes your life. And, it's really cool of sitting during the break just going, wow, it just takes one moment for things to start shifting. Really, truly, just one moment. Like my energy is different, right? And, it's one of the reasons I love to coach and consult and facilitate workshops and, all these things is because, it it forces me to show up no matter what, no matter what, no matter what. And what if you could start showing up for you, be present with you, no matter what? I'm gonna sort of speak and celebrate and brag a little bit about my amazing 11-year-old son. If you don't follow me on social media, you can check out my Facebook page. I've got several. You just look for my name, Catherine McIntosh. We also have a No Judgment Diet page, and you can also follow me on Instagram. I'm also on TikTok. But this weekend, and this was one of the rattling moments, beautiful moments, but rattling. Um, you know, my son has been working really hard at his snowboarding skills, and he does competitions. He travels for these competitions. He, gets to practice in the middle of the week, one day a week, gets to ditch school early. Actually, today's the day. He's probably walking over there right now, and he gets to spend 4 hours, snowboarding on the mountain and practicing his flips and his 360s and his tricks and all that stuff. And so this last weekend, last week, my son was having this moment, full on tears, just frustrated and upset and kind of throwing a little bit of a fit. And he's like, I don't get to practice. I don't get to practice. I don't get to practice. I can't believe it. They're snowing. And I was like, snow's a good thing, right? We live in Aspen, but not for him, because his competition, it meant that he couldn't practice prior to his competition. And so I had to sit with him and just be like, I hear you. And you have every right to feel the way you feel. And so I want to invite all of you for this topic of today is the day that could change your life. And every day is a day that could change your life. What if you were much more gentle on yourselves when you're not in the best space? Like, hey, I hear you. And it's okay to feel the way you're feeling, right? I think what keeps us stuck is our mind grabs on to this idea that it's not okay to feel the way we feel. What? What? It's not okay to feel the way we feel. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It is okay to feel the way you feel. And guess what? If you're okay with it, that emotion, right? Energy in motion passes through you more quick. It's when we grab onto this idea that we shouldn't feel the way we're feeling, that we shouldn't be grieving, that we shouldn't be sad, that we shouldn't be frustrated, that we shouldn't be angry. Those are the moments. So I sat with my son and I was like, it's okay. And I just kind of let him, have his moment. And I'm so proud of myself because I think it was the longest I did it, where I didn't try and fix him. I didn't try to change it. I didn't try to offer a solution. I just was like, it's okay. And I just sat there, allowed him to feel the way he was feeling. And they said, Mom, what should I do? And he said, well, bud, here's what I know. I said, they did this study with Olympic athletes, and the Olympic athletes would visualize themselves going through these, races or track meets or, you name it, an athletic event. And they said they studied these athletes and they tested the firing of their muscles when these athletes closed their eyes and they visualized a possibility. They visualized them winning. They visualized scoring the goal, or they visualized the hole in one, right? Or they visualized breaking the world record. Oftentimes, almost always, their muscles would fire in the exact same way with the exact same intensity as if they had already done the race, if they were already competing, if they were already physically. I said so I said to him, I said, when you're imagining competing this weekend, because all of his teammates have been putting pressure on him, come on, Duke, you can do it. You got it, right? You got it. And so he started putting pressure on himself because he was attempting to do some tricks that no one else in his group was doing. And they're like, come on, Duke, you could do it. And he's like, Mom, I'm going to let everybody down. I'm like, well, that's visualizing not the outcome that you want to have. And so I said to him, look, when you're thinking about landing this jump that you're going to do, Are you visualizing landing it or are you visualizing crashing? And he goes, oh, I'm visualizing crashing. I'm visualizing screwing it up. And I said, what if you take 5 minutes and you visualize landing it? And I said, and if you landed it, how would that feel in your body? And he was like, oh, that feels so good. That feels so good. And I was like, well, why don't you take some time today, take some time tomorrow, and you practice that in your body. And so all last week, he did not have the chance to practice, right? So he had to do it in his head. He had to practice in his head the result, the experience, the sensations, the emotions that he wanted to experience. And this proud mama, I might even cry, Sunday, he ended up attempting in competition for the first time ever a 360, freaking nailed it, right? He did some other things, nailed it. And then the end of the day came, and this is a competition. They all got bibs on, they're racing. It's sort of the Northwest division. So we compete against people in California and Utah and Colorado and some other places. And so the time came for the awards. It was 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The competition happened at 10:30 in the morning. And all day he had no idea. He had no idea. He was like, Mom, I hope, but I don't know. I said, You're not gonna know. He goes, Nope, I won't know until podium time. And so we're sitting there, and they call someone who has been winning a lot of competitions. They win third. They call someone who's been beating Duke at almost everything. They call him second. And then all of a sudden, the guy and the announcer was a redhead, and he said, and my son's a redhead. And he said, well, it must have been that red hair that got this guy the gold. And all of a sudden, he's the only redheaded person in his heat. And you could just see the joy and the smile and the energy in his life. And so here's an example. The day that changed his life, it might have been the gold medal. That might have been it. But I believe the true day that changed my son's life was that allowing him to be sad, giving him the space, and then him asking, well, what would you do, Mom? What should I do? And then him turning it into realizing that he could visualize the possibility before the possibility occurs. That, I believe, there are moments every day where we have the chance to visualize a different outcome. And I bet that if you pay attention to your head for an hour, you will notice that you might have in your head the outcomes you don't want to have happening that keep reoccurring in your world. Like this woman in the cheesy Hallmark movie that believed that she was cursed, right? And so at the end of the movie, she gets to meet, finally, they go on this treasure hunt to find the woman from grade school 20 years later that cursed her. And she's like, what curse? I don't know what you're talking about. And she's like, "Didn't you curse me?" And she's like, "Oh my God, I didn't know what I was doing. I just did that because I was like having a moment." And so this woman had gone 20 years believing she was cursed. And some of us are going 20, 30, 40 years believing something's wrong with us, believing the judgments that we have of ourselves are real, believing that we're not enough, believing that our bodies are not capable of change, believing that we're at the effect of our environment or circumstances, believing that we'll never be able to take that risk or make that life change or start our own company or build a business or start a charity. We're having these mental conversations in our head that are the outcomes we don't want. And I bet if you pay attention to your head for an hour, you'll realize you're the reason for the outcomes that are happening, right? You're the reason. And so what my invitation to all of you is, if you're listening to this, is, ooh, am I willing to allow myself to imagine a different outcome? Are you willing to allow yourself to imagine a different outcome? Because guess what? When you start imagining, and this is the hardest thing for people to do because they want to say, but look, I have extra weight. But look at my bank account, I'm broke. But look at my relationship, it's doomed. But look at my relationship patterns, I'm always going to repeat that. And guess what? When we look at what's currently occurring in our lives, if that is what's going to happen, we keep recreating what is in the future. The hardest thing for, physical beings to do is to hang on to the energy of the possibility before the possibility occurs. But when you can get into the energy in your body, get into the energy in your cells, when you can get into the energy in your heart and your momentum and your throat, like all of a sudden you start to embody in every fiber of your being a molecular, scientific, physical, right? Change that all of the sudden finally becomes possible because you're aligning with the energy of it before it shows up. And this is why 90 plus percent of businesses fail. This is why 90 plus percent of most businesses don't last beyond 70, 75 years, right? Because the business dies with the person who created it more often than not, right? Those businesses that are out there that last 3, 4, 5 generations, they're doing something right because they're passing down an energy of a belief, of a momentum, of a possibility. And so today could be the day that changes your life. One, by being kind to yourself, by surrendering when things aren't going so well, by recognizing that if it's not going so well, it's probably because the universe is trying to give you something greater and you're not listening. Some of the hardest life lessons, right? And yet healing doesn't have to be hard, right? Possibility doesn't have to be hard. Getting rid of your old programming doesn't have to be hard. You just have to make the fact that it could happen more valuable than looking for the evidence from your past as to why it can't. You are in charge of your own life. And so the way to do that is just to start like writing down what are some of the things that you would like to experience? Where do you want to travel in the world? What sort of life do you want to be living? What would your perfect day look like? And when you start getting into that visualization and creating that habit and sort of allowing that to be your reality, you will raise your vibration, which then guess what? Opens the door for change. And so every day could be a day that changes your life. And if that's the case, wouldn't you show up totally different for your day and your life and you and your energy and the people that you love that are in your life? I think you would. And I know that where I was at the beginning of the show is very different energetically than where I am now. Why? Because I allowed for space to be vulnerable to the truth of I was like, I'm going to get on this radio show and I'm going to just start crying today, which could be okay, right? I'm not afraid to cry. But the point is that each of you has a chance and a choice every day to be vulnerable with yourselves. Every day to just be kind to yourselves when maybe things aren't going your way. And there's no wrongness in that. In fact, if you're willing to do that, if you start making a habit of showing up for you, it'll change your life. And you'll be surprised by how many people come up to you and share with you how much you changed theirs. And I think that we're all here because we're trying to make the world a better place. And I know that I can only do that if I also pay attention to me, right? I have to walk my talk. And if I'm not doing that, I certainly know when that's happening. So for all of you out there, you're doing a great job at life if no one's told you, right? It ain't always easy, but you're doing a great job at life. And if no one's patting you on the back today, I hope that you pat yourself on the back today. So thank you for listening to today's show. If this inspired you in any way, please feel free to share it. Please feel free to leave a comment, send us an email. You can check out my website with all of my online offerings, my private coaching, and anything else that I offer. I have a ton of free content as well, some great downloads to help you with your nervous system. But as always, I invite you to stay true to you, to never give up on your dreams. And you never know, today might be the day that changes your life. So I adore each and every single one of you. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Catherine is not a medical practitioner nor a licensed therapist. She has strong opinions and will express them, and truly believes that you are your best advocate for any and every area of your life. If you need medical advice, please consult your physician.